Indian River Connections brings you the first source you can watch for truth on board decisions in Indian River County. The Board Report, where taxpayers and policymakers intersect. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform to get notified when we go live on Fridays at 7 p.m. Visit IndianRiverConnections.com for more. Sponsored by Gus Curran's House of Champions.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Board Report brought to you by Indian River Connections. I'm Joann Binford, and again, joining me today is John Karapi.
Hey,
John,
Joann,
how's
how
it
you
going?
doing? Good, good, good.
Doing good.
Yeah. We're coming off a great event last night at Filthy's, and then now we're doing our board report on Fridays. And I hear there's something going on at Kilted and the vice mayor and more. What's going on with that?
Oh, yeah, we've got a great show today. We're going to be diving into this local topic of the Kilted Mermaid, a local owner, and Jennifer Pippin is got the lead on the story. And Thomas Augustus, he's the editor-in-chief of the Sunshine Journal, has written about this and done some research on this. So we're going to hear a lot about this and learn how the city of Indian River County voters can make a change. Because their voices, their actions are what it's going to take to make the change they want to see.
Interesting. Yeah. So I guess that they're going to have a meeting next week to talk about this subject with Linda and at the city council meeting.
That's right. Okay. And people can show up, and people, need to have their voices heard to just tell the city council how they feel and how they want to be represented as city residents, so that's really important. So it's a great show today.
Yeah, that's what's important. I mean, that's what brought us all together with the school board meetings and voicing our concerns and speaking our truth at the school board meetings. And obviously now it's going to trickle down to the city council and holding these policymakers accountable for some of their actions, because they want to be a public servant and a public, in the public's eye. Then they have to listen to what we have to say. So, and that's why we do the board report, and we thank Gus Curran's House of Champions for supporting us and being the sponsor to help us to keep doing this every week at 7 o'clock. So we really appreciate Gus and House of Champions.
Yeah. So let's cut to the punch.
Tired of the same old workout? Come knock out your fitness goals at Gus Curran's House of Champions. Founded in 1996 right here in Vero Beach, Florida, our Hall of Fame trainers will push you to your limits and beyond. Whether you're a beginner or a pro, we have the perfect class for you, including the one-of-a-kind rock-steady Parkinson's training. So come join the fight and unleash the champion inside you. Give them a call, 772-713-1157, or go to gchouseofchampions.com.
Welcome back to the board report. We've got Thomas Augustus, editor-in-chief of the Sunshine Journal, and Jennifer Pippin, our local chapter chair for Moms for Liberty. How are you guys doing?
Jennifer, how you doing?
Good. How y'all doing?
Doing great. Joann, you doing all right?
I'm doing great. I love this topic that you guys are bringing up. Tell us about it, Jennifer. What's going on with this local business?
Sure. So a couple Sunday nights ago, there was a Pride event at the Kilted Mermaid, and it was advertised for all ages welcome. And typically in the past, around 8 o'clock, they have it only 18 and up or 21 and up. But this time they let kids stay for the event. And there was 2 drag queens there that stripped down to their bra and panties, were taking dollars from the crowd. And there was toddlers to teenagers present. So, of course, everybody started sending me pictures and videos and saying what's going on. And I thought this was illegal. And, so we filed reports from the governor down all the way down to Vero Beach Police Department. And because Linda Moore, who owns Kilted Mermaid, is an elected official, the Attorney General picked up the case. So it's currently under investigation for having minors present at this drag queen show where, it was sexually explicit adult entertainment for children.
Wow. And Thomas, you wrote an article about this. We love your paper. It's truth finding. It's informative. Tell us a little bit on your side and what you found out as well.
Well, it was really interesting because all the pictures that Jennifer received came off of the Kilted Mermaid's Facebook page. And that to me right there was like, we're just going to be bold and we don't care. And then they were taken down. Right, Jennifer? If I'm not mistaken, they were all taken down. So the pictures,
everything on their Instagram, everything on their Facebook pages, all the pictures that people took and were tagging Kilted Mermaid or the drag queens in were removed shortly after we came out publicly and said we, challenged this with the Attorney General, and all the way down to the Vero Beach Police Department, because I know it was the Vero Beach Police Department's jurisdiction. And then we sent it to the sheriff's office too, just in case, just kind of full transparency. We sent the formal complaint to everybody.
So, Mike, can you go back to that scene? I think I saw a baby in somebody's arms.
There is a baby.
Yeah, there you go. Toddler. So let's
and the heart is over that's like an 8-year-old girl there, I think, right?
Yeah.
Roughly.
So there are children. So what kind of...
That's Miss Tree Hugga, by the way, the drag queen, he, she, or it's Pat.
Wow. So I don't understand what the incentive is for it to be a family type event where you have little kids and toddlers at this type of event. It's a very adult event.
It is. And, she's not allowed to do this in an area if you're 1,000 feet within a residence. So there's residents all over downtown. And obviously, if you're going to run, quote, things that amount to a strip club or where lewd entertainment is practiced, you can do it in Indian River County. It's near impossible. Mm-hmm. First off, they say it can happen in Zone M industrial. That's the equivalent of putting it out to where they're going to put the sewage plant. Mm. They bought that land out there by the airport and they rezoned it Zone M, heavy industrial. That's where it has to be. And so you could put your club next to a sewage plant if you want to do this, or out there somewhere in the woods by the airport where, few go, but not downtown.
Now, what time of day was this?
This was Sunday. It started, I believe, at 4.
At 4. Yep.
And it went until close. I don't know what close was, other than probably about 10, 11 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And it was called a pride tea dance. There was some ancient ritual tea dance thing she was equipped, and it had 2 drag performances. One was the Miss Tree Hugga. You see that picture that was up there where she was bent over, was facing the kid. Since she turned around, walked to the kid, and said hello, and that's the picture you see with the heart. And the other side of all this is it said there's they had all these guests, so like vendors and stuff, and there's this group called Misters with an exclamation point. I'm like, well, what? I just see language and I go, that looks odd. What is Misters? Misters are gay men. It's an association. There's actually on Facebook, there's a Misters of Vero Beach or Central Florida or something. And it's all these like gay buff guys that go around to clubs together. And so they show up and they provide further entertainment for the guests on the dance floor and things like that. So you see all these guys walking around, they're all buff, and a good chance that they're one of the Misters.
Which, Thomas found that through his research. I had no idea even what that was until he told me. And, it's just all the more reason to not have, that around the children. And in contacting the Vero Beach Police Department, they had no idea that this was going on. Like when they were patrolling, and nobody called at the time of the event. They didn't know until the formal complaint that was filed the next day that this had even happened.
Yeah, what I don't understand is why it was for all ages, why an event like this was kind of inviting you to come with your kids to make it all ages. And then you have what is the purpose? What is the goal? If this is a official, somebody representing the people, what is the mindset? Like what
Hedonism
I
is
don't
normal.
understand that.
Hedonism is normal in the view of the club owners and the crowd. That's got to be it. I mean, you really can't get this is a moral question first,
It is.
and then the legal, which law is has a moral thing to it. But this is a moral question first, and quite honestly, people in American society have very different morals, but there's a point where this is also child abuse because the moral reality of what's happening is just so
Well, we have to draw
awful.
the line at how much exposure do we give our kids or other people's kids? Or there's a line that you need to
Or
draw and identify that this is not age appropriate. So have your event, but have it for adults only. That's what
hey,
nightclubs are for.
you got a bunch of kids running around town, not with their parents, just hanging out on a Sunday afternoon, and they go to the gay club and because it's all ages. Oh, sure, come on in. You're probably with somebody nobody knows. Before you know it, they're sitting there watching a drag show and some guy doing sexual lewd poses and collecting dollars from a bunch of adults.
And
It's just
stripping, he took off his dress.
yeah.
He's collecting dollar bills. I mean, literally, he put his, buttocks up against the glass where there was a table of teenage boys sitting there and bent over. So it was completely, sexually explicit. It was completely adult entertainment. And even if it wasn't a man dressed as a woman, let's just say it was a woman, and she was doing this and again collecting dollars from the crowd. You can see in one of those pictures from the event, that's not allowed in the state of Florida. You can't do that. You have to be 18 or over to go to a strip club or to attend those adult events. So whether it was a drag queen or not, I mean, this was definitely sexual exploitation of minors, and
Well,
they do
yeah.
not have a license to have these performers in their facility.
And that leaves a lasting impression on these minors that don't understand sexuality, and they are easily trafficked. It's almost like a grooming, because now your kids are looking at this as a normal thing. So when some pervert is approaching them, how are they going to identify that's wrong? He shouldn't be doing that to me. From, oh, he's a friend of mine, it's normal. Yeah, okay, you want to look at my thing and shake my thing, or I can shake it for you. It's confusing for these young kids, and it can be a dangerous way of opening doors to pedophiles and kids.
Well, there it is. And the reality of this is we had the law passed in 2023 that extended. I did a follow up correction story, and the only reason I did this is because in the initial report I said, she could be fined up to $5,000 and lose their liquor license, whether it be for a limited amount of time or permanently. And they had just received their liquor license like 18 months ago, if I'm not mistaken. It's in the past 18 months.
So is the law clearly stated that you cannot have minors at this type of a show? Is that a clear
Here's
verbiage
the
of the
thing.
law, or is there something to be interpreted?
Here's the thing. So they passed the law, and the law basically said this, and they added to the outline in the obscenity statute. So any show, exhibition, or other presentation in front of a live audience, which in whole or in part depicts or simulates nudity, sexual conduct, sexual excitement, specific sexual activities, as those terms are defined in A477.001. That's the Florida obscenity law. or lewd conduct or the lewd exposure of prosthetic or imitation genitals breasts is patently offensive to the prevailing standards in the adult community of this state as a whole with respect to what is suitable material or conduct for the age of the child present. So they added that to, it's called a live adult performance. It was immediately challenged by this place called Hamburger Mary's in Orlando, because Orlando, they did all age drag shows on Sundays.
Wow.
And they challenged it in federal court. And the federal court put an injunction on the law statewide, right? And then it was appealed to the appellate court in Atlanta, and it was a split appellate 2-1. And the majority not only kept a stay on the injunction, then they struck the law down in whole. Now, what happens with a state law, usually when it goes to the feds and it hasn't been heard in any of that state's courts, like this this hasn't been challenged in the state of Florida at all. They usually refer it back to get certificate from that Supreme Court of that state. They didn't do that here. The split majority just struck the law down, just dismissed it. So they violated procedure that they normally do. They held the injunction universal, which by the way had been struck down recently in the Supreme Court, right? So I don't know how that plays here, but since they dismissed the law, maybe not. So now the Department of Hotels and Restaurants is probably going to have to go to the Supreme Court to get their case heard. And this is ridiculous because it shouldn't have happened this way. The state courts for a state law should have had a state decision made on it, and it never occurred. And the judge, he's got a hard name to say, Judge. Excuse me, I'm sorry, real quick. Judge, it's Gerald Tajoflat. He was the one who wrote the dissent. He's perfectly in line with the injunctions because he said it should just be applied for Hamburger Mary's. And they said lewd in their decision in the majority was not definable or very ambiguous. But there's all sorts of Supreme Court precedent about obscene, lewd, lascivious, indecent, filthy, or vile. And that satisfied Miller's requirements, the Miller test. Jennifer, you're very aware of that. You'll probably want to expound on that. And also there is the Ginsburg versus New York, because when it comes to kids, the Supreme Court's pretty universal about this. So when you have lewd behavior, you may get away with it in adult entertainment. It might not be considered obscene, but when it comes to kids, it doesn't work that way. With kids, it is, the court upheld statutes specifically targeting the sale of obscene materials to minor or the presentation thereof. And that's the point of all this. So it's an interesting.
So with that being said, Jennifer, how do you feel about the Attorney General taking on this case?
So just because that law is on hold, they said that they were going to look at other laws. They were going to watch the videos. They were going to look at the pictures, and they were going to see about child exploitation, operating, that kind of business without a license. And look at other things that, putting these children in harm's way, really, so that's what they're going to look at the AG's office. And they said typically these cases take 2 weeks to 30 days, to get going and look at all the evidence. So we'll be right at, 2 weeks here, coming up. So hopefully we'll get some information before the city council meeting on the 22nd and, kind of know what's going to happen, because the penalty for this too is the governor could remove her. So, between asking for dirty, used sex toys last year, not wanting to participate and work with ICE here in our county. And now this, I mean, he very well has the authority to remove her, right? So as the AG does the investigation, the governor can remove her, or, she could resign. She's getting a lot of heat from this. I know a lot of law enforcement around the counties talking about this. People are talking about this. So she may very well, resign when she realizes that, she doesn't represent the city in this capacity. So and then or option 3 is the city of Vero Beach voters could recall her as well. So it just depends on what happens with the AG's investigation, what happens with this next meeting coming up. And I think Joann and Thomas will have a really good understanding and kind of feel for the community, hopefully by the 22nd when this meeting comes up.
Right. So let's hold it right there. We're going to take a break, and then we'll be right back. So everybody stay tuned for the next part of our show. We have a lot more coming. Let's take a break.
Warrior Shield Foundation is here to unite, honor, and provide support for veterans, first responders, and Gold Star family members. The foundation will enable them to find the help they need through direct assistance or by connecting them with our shared vision network. Using data-driven models, we provide solutions that make a long-lasting difference. We, along with our partners, are dedicated to bringing together like-minded groups and individuals who have committed to making a difference in the lives of our hardworking, everyday heroes. We bridge the gap by connecting warriors or their families with the assistance they deserve and require, such as service dogs, wheelchairs, counseling, scholarships, and team-building retreats, to name a few. You can help right now to make a difference for those who have helped and protected us all. Warrior Shield Foundation, selflessly doing for those who need it most.
It's a long way to home, but you won't take the hard road all alone. Just look to your left and look to your right. You were born to fight.
Indian River Connections brings you the first source you can watch for truth on board decisions in Indian River County. The Board Report, where taxpayers and policymakers intersect. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform to get notified when we go live on Fridays at 7 p.m. Visit IndianRiverConnections.com for more.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Board Report. And we have our returning guests, Jennifer Pippin, Thomas Kenny. We've got John Karapi, our producer and partner, Mike Bolak. Hey, everybody.
Hey, guys. I don't like being up there. I'm going to switch with Jen because I think that looks more symmetrical. Thanks
Nice
for joining
sitting
us.
next to you, Mr. Bolak.
Yes, I'm honored.
No cheating.
I appreciate you guys for coming on and spearheading this. Again, this is one of those stories you just see on the Daily Caller or something like that in some weird ass town.
Lives at TikTok, right?
Yeah, you see, this is in California or this is in New England somewhere, but no, this is in Vero Beach, and it's Red County, Red City, very wealthy Vero Beach in Indian River County, Florida, and I don't know.
I just want to say one thing. This story is my most widely read by about 30%.
I can imagine, and that's why I kind of wanted to feature it.
That record's everywhere.
We can spread this across our other channels who get a much broader audience, but this happens in every town, and if you don't pay attention to local, it goes out of control. It just gets away from you, and you have people who, they didn't know her. She's a local business owner. She owns a bar. Sounds great. And little did you know, there's they're recruiting your wife to be a swinger in the back room or something like that, and then they're asking for dildos to be dropped off in the parking lot. Who the hell knows? But they get elected. They get elected, so that's where it gets infiltrated at the lower levels, and then they build a career out of it, or they destroy everything around them. Which, I mean, right now, Vero Beach is a beautiful city, but let's face it, the county business or the city business is not very beautiful.
Well, and
more of that.
when you mentioned the sex toys, why don't you tell us about that? Because Jennifer, tell us about that, and Thomas, you wrote a story about that as well. There's a lot of viewers that don't know about that, and I was kind of surprised about that. So why don't you guys share that?
Well, if you go to that breaking story, I linked that in there because she basically she sent a Facebook post out around 4:30 on last year, April, and she wanted in April last year, and she just said, "Hey, so I have an odd request. Does anyone have any used sex toys, preferably dildos? Any size, color for a large art project, asking for a friend, drop off a kilted, or message me and I'll come and get them. Need a bunch." And it just started going out online, and someone sent it to me. I'm like, are you kidding me? You're asking for used sex toys to come to your restaurant? The news writes itself. I tell people this all the time. And in this case, her penmanship and the utensils she was using was a little bit odd.
Yeah. And this was public, so it wasn't just her friends or just a select group of people. This is literally a public post. It was shared in multiple public Facebook groups, and
seeing it raw, like not from anybody shared. I just remember seeing it come across my timeline, and I'm like,
what is that?
Woman,
right.
Like a city council
so kids
member?
could see this. Everybody could see it. Yeah, it's and it's funny because Jean Posca, with the school board had said something at the meeting and said, listen, she's in charge of, transportation for buses and, doing things with the city, and kind of linked it together. And the only other article other than Thomas's was in the TC Palm talking bad about Jean Posca for bringing it up, and never condemned. Yeah. And never condemned, what was actually done, and she removed the post and did a very bland apology. And, nothing ever came of it. I think 2 people showed up to the city council and said something, and that was it.
Yeah. And,
coverage. If it wasn't for Thomas, it wouldn't have been covered.
Exactly. No.
Yeah.
You gotta remember that she's from Orlando. So this has all been infiltrated, like we were bringing up earlier in the show, is that it was a red county, blah blah blah. But no, we've been infiltrated, and I've been seeing it coming for a long time. And so they wandered in here, and they bring that ideology in here. They start to groom the town and the area, in that downtown area, into what they want it to be for where they were in Orlando. They bring it with them. And it's time to end it. No more. We're not putting up with this anymore. People are getting a little outraged by this. Like you said, the local law enforcement's got a problem with it because nobody called and said, hey, guys, there's some weird activity going on in a local business. You might want to go check it out. That's what they're here to do, is to protect and serve. Protect our children and serve our community. So they should be outraged, but they also need to be awake and aware that this is what's happening in our backyard, and we're saying no more. That's enough.
Yeah, it's fortunate for us that we now have the board report, and we have Thomas Augustus and Jennifer Pippin, because you're not getting the whole coverage of what's going on in Indian River County through 3296 and Hometown News. You're not getting it, and this is a really important subject because people have to vote their representatives in.
Or vote them out, or ask them to leave.
Just like the first major story, with her social media post, nobody's covering it. We are. And
I got phone calls from leaders on that going, "Is this true?" I'm like, "Hey, man, there it is." I don't have to.
Like you said,
you're absolutely right. And it's just the Vice Squad did not come down on the vice mayor for that one either. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, other than the city's financials being a wreck, back to the infiltration where we have these Yankee style politics, Yankee style Republican politics, and then we end up with county officials and constitutional elected officials who aren't very conservative, but that's what they run on. Like the mess you saw, you guys had mentioned something about the county level and some of the city, the
Speaking to the budget,
yeah,
County commissioners, yeah.
with the
Right, the
sheriff
sheriff's
proposing a
budget.
20-something $million increase to his
it's
budget,
14 million.
14
Mhm.
million. Well, but that's from what he requested last year, right? He didn't get what he requested.
No, not over what he requested last year. It's 14 million over what he received. So it's been a back and forth, and he's been trying. He's over his tenure, he's put a step program in. So every year, these guys get an incremental raise. He fixed the compression, so you have the high entry level, but then there's not much, and then the top is, so they fixed that compression. Everything is evened out, and he's been wanting to pay these guys and girls, and understandably so. I do think, though, a constitutional officer, this is the $10 question that the board's asking him, the constitutional officer, once they get that chunk of change, did they actually fund what they said they were funding when they presented their budget?
Right,
well,
and that is a
big
concern.
question. That is the big question. But I think, they've cut it. He asked for 11 million over last year. He got whatever it was, 6 or 5.7 or something like that. He asked for 14 million over this year, over last year's budget this year, and he got 4. He says he needs 9 to do the pay increases, because when he does the bottom one at 22% to bring it up to that 60,000, the same as your police and same as your fire, and the same, and relative to other counties like next door, then he has to give everybody those incremental bumps in those pay scales. So there's no pay compression. And so that costs $9 million. And here's the crazy thing of all this, and this goes back, Joann, it goes back once again about this, your position as a candidate. Because John Takanik, the county administrator, is up there talking about, with what's going on in Tallahassee and the possibility of losing property tax funding. And they were talking about rollback, and the sheriff came up and said, you guys are confusing people with all this language about rollback and all this stuff. And rollback basically means, in order for not a tax increase to come because properties get assessed higher, you roll it back to the same amount you charged the individual last year. Anyway, and so all this is going on. They're freaking out because 72% of their general fund is property taxes. And so they don't have business taxes.
Right.
And there it is.
And they're giving the rest away to the NGOs.
And so they come in and they throw up all these charts and spreadsheets to Kanik, and he proceeds to basically ream Eric Flowers. I felt bad for Eric. They set him up, in my view. And then Joe Flesher says this. I could not believe it. I about lost my mind. Before I came on the show, I wrote it down. So he's going on. He says, we also have to look at the greater good of all of our citizens, 170,000 citizens that we're accountable for. And I'm not saying it in the Joe Slow dialect. Provide that element in addition to other services. And then we have to look at what we have available. And I believe that the sheriff, before he speaks, should be given whatever we could do from our budget, from what is available or left over.
Wow. Yeah.
But we should not exceed it. We can't exceed. We can't raise the mill rate. We can't burden the taxpayer because they need to have other elements of survival and sustenance that we provide as well. And these are harsh economic times.
Oh gosh.
That's what he said. He went socialist on them.
Thomas, he is so socialist. When I was running for county commission and I talked to him we had a meeting at Bacchiano's church, and he talked to me outside, and I says, we need to cut back on the NGOs. I says, what are we giving to the veterans? We've got veterans out there that need money. I'd rather give to the veterans. And he said, well, we're helping children. And I says, well, the veterans gave their lives for the nation and they're struggling. And he says, well, I can see you're not ready to be a county commissioner.
Wow.
So what he meant by that is they already, as a liar, as a fake rhino, he's already got the veterans vote in this county. It's the poverty people they need to win over. And that's pretty much what he told you.
That's a good way to look at it.
Well, and here's the other thing.
I just was like, what? These NGOs, they take our money and there's no accountability.
And here's the other thing. Eric comes up there and he like flips the script and he says, you should be providing the responders and the sheriff first, and then you guys need to figure this out. You know, because they're out there every day protecting the community. You're not going to have a library and all this. And he's right. I mean, quite honestly, he's right.
He's right, but I think you're
right about that. There's probably some money there that they could squeeze.
70,000.
Yeah, understood. But he had civilian employees in there ready to testify that they are on food stamps. That's what he said at the podium. And so listen, we can't exceed, we need that so we have survival and other sustenance. It's like, dude, give them the money. Let these people live. And he's telling them right now they can't.
Well, you know, if our county commissioners worked well with our Chamber of Commerce to bring real business opportunities and competitiveness here to the county, we wouldn't have so many people on food stamps.
You're absolutely right.
If anybody has a chance to go back and watch the public comment from that meeting, it's very heartbreaking. You hear some of the current law enforcement, retired law enforcement, talking about their finances and their struggles right now. And it's absolutely heartbreaking. You know, from the outside looking in, I didn't know much about this. So I watched the meeting. You know, I didn't speak at the meeting. I didn't go to the meeting, but I did watch the meeting because I wanted to see what was going on. What does this talk about? You know, why does it seem like always the budget's so high and these NGOs are getting so much money? I didn't understand. So I watch and I listen, and hearing the testimony of some of these people, everybody's speaking in favor of, you know, the sheriff reaching his budget. It was heartbreaking. It was really heartbreaking.
Yeah, our first responders are not paid what they need to be paid to survive. And, you know, and we have great training programs for our first responders here in the county, better than other counties. So the other counties are just thriving. They're like, yeah, you're from Indian River County. Come on over. You're saving us money.
But what I want to know is,
more.
Like, I know we have state-of-the-art real-time crime center and all that. I think we have an excess of cameras around the neighborhoods. But, I mean, even $73 million seems like a lot for a sheriff's department for a county this small, even with
not anymore, though.
Yeah,
he's got $79 million.
And we've got a lot of homeless. We've got a lot of crime building up. I mean, back from when I moved here, you know, you're up in Fellsmere, so you're still in the outback. But here in the city, man, it's changed quickly and rapidly. And I see so much homeless out there now.
The urban blight.
You know, it used to be we'd have that season where they would come and then leave, you know, come for the summer months. But they're here year round now, you know, and it's
ideal weather for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying yes, our deputies definitely deserve more money. I don't know. I'm no expert on the sheriff's department's budget or spending habits. I do know we have state-of-the-art everything, and maybe it could have been managed a little better. But I do like the sheriff, and I think he's definitely taking it in the right direction, although he is catching a lot of criticism from former deputies that aren't really shying away from speaking out, and I guess that are trying to confront him about some of this stuff. But I mean, it's got to be a tough position.
It is a tough position because you've got people that are going to fight against you and people that are going to be on your side. Anytime you have a position of stature like that, you're the
Or people
county
management.
commissioner, right, where you're representing people, or
And
you're
we
a
saw that with
boss.
Keith Touchberry. Remember,
Mhm.
there was some voices from inside the department that said he was just a jerk to work for. And he's a
Yeah.
manager too, though. Like some people don't like being told to do their job. So it's like
Mhm.
a tick for tat.
But when you think about it, Mike,
Personalities.
commission can still say, let me have a closer look at your budget. Like, they can give him the money and he can spread it out how he wants. But they can still do an audit and say, can we audit your records? You're asking us for a lot of money. But they don't do that. They don't sit there and, with a fine tooth comb and then say, hey, you actually did use the money where you said you were going to use it. Because to me, we need our first responders, and the way the economy is now and the demographics are changing, we're going to need our first responders, and we need to have first responders that get all the things that they need. They need the mental health care. They need a lot of things. These guys, we don't know what they go through every day, but I can tell you they see things that we don't see and we don't ever want to see.
Well,
I
the interesting conversation was when Sheriff Flowers, in the first part before they went away to try and figure out the paperwork and see if it was right, with Daryl Orr, because he's a former sheriff, and you see them start doing budget wonkiness, talking back and forth. You're like, well, why don't you pull it from this fund or that way? And that I found interesting, because Daryl wasn't necessarily in disagreement with the sheriff. He knew the sheriff was in a bind. And the one thing you want to make a point about here is that this problem of paying these officers is now 3 years in the running here, almost 4, because he saw it from the get-go. And Daryl Orr, he was moving in that direction, and then Sheriff Flowers took it and set it all up. But it's been 3 years in the running with him. And that budgeting is going to get backed up. And each year, the demand for budgeting is going to get greater because you haven't fixed this problem.
Right.
And so it went from 9 million to 11 million, something like 9 to 11 to 14 now. Next year it could be 16, 17. You never know. And
but it's hard for
only going
taxpayers
up.
to swallow that when you see brand new Tahoes, SWAT equipment, helicopters.
I agree.
Social
Helicopters
media
were $2,500 a helicopter.
Yes, but the taxpayer don't give a shit. They see a helicopter up there burning tax dollars. And
They
that's all
got
they
it
know.
through a federal
They didn't
grant,
hear
though.
about
I mean, that's
tax like,
well budgeted.
But you also have to remember they're getting some federal grants for some things. They are getting some grants.
Helicopters and parts being one of them.
So what happens, though, if property taxes are affected at the state level? What happens to these counties and all their ability to fund the sheriff's department?
You better start inviting business.
I'm curious, because exactly that's what's going through my head. It's like, you want the town to grow, but you don't want any jobs
our county
here.
into a trap.
Yeah.
You're laying a financial trap.
Because we're dependent on the property taxes.
Because all this housing and people buying it, and that's wonderful and everything. He said the only revenue we have if they do this is new construction. So new construction to Canada said was like 670 million last year. This year it's 609 million. So those are your new revenue sources for the county, and because they'll bring in new taxes. But business taxes would be great. I'm just flabbergasted they don't want to raise the roof on the mall 10 feet. So this guy can actually do what he needs to do to build a booming retail and mixed-use place that would bring in markets like a Sprouts or Trader Joe's and all these different things that you see in other counties. And, the mall's there. It's built. My wife and I were just in yesterday. We thought there was an eyeglass store. We walked the whole thing. There's like 5 stores open in there and a giant church.
I know, it's
the church has got a whole wing.
Yeah,
but I wonder though, like why? But you see for lease everywhere. Why would anybody invest in it? Why would anybody put their store there for any period of time? No, because you don't know what's actually happening with the place.
But if you right now, but if you you allow this guy to renovate and create something that would pull traffic off the highway and be sort of a center of commerce, especially for people on the weekends.
And you have the
right now we have
college
Target
around
and
the
Home
corner.
Depot and Lowe's.
Yeah, well, I agree. I think we need more of a
World.
a beautiful community gathering area with those kinds of shops. And 14th on Friday night, the last day of the month, isn't really, I think it could be better. Yeah, and I think the mall, like I was talking the other day, that's got such potential, but they're constricted, and
Right.
I don't know how it's
10
still
feet.
there.
A 10-foot roof, which is not going to make a difference out there.
Yeah, it could be real pretty out there, a pretty business kind of sector area where it brings more jobs. They forget that when people are working, they spend money. When
That's
people are not earning a living, they're living dollar to dollar. So if you open up another like little restaurant and the prices for us to go out to eat, between me and my husband, it's almost $80 to $100 just for the two of us. So if you're making minimum wage, you're not contributing to your businesses in the neighborhood because you're saving your money for the clothes you need, the food you need, and the car you need, and paying your rent. And they don't just have that mentality that, look, we need to bring lucrative businesses here so that people can work, can have options, can have competitive salaries.
But that's always been the problem in New County. I've been here for 40 years now. I mean, they've never brought in any kind of industry that creates high-paying jobs. It's all by design. That's why you got a guy like Fletcher's on the county commissioner. They don't want that. That's what they don't want. That's.
But they keep voting for him. He's gonna run again.
So what district is he? What part of our county?
He's Sebastian. He's Sebastian. Yeah, he's all up there by himself. So he's on an island out there. So he's under the radar, but he's not. So he gets away with.
Let's not talk about Sebastian politics either.
Exactly.
So it's a whole different show.
100%.
Oh, yeah.
So he's up there with that. So that's what he does. So that's his. Fletcher's been. He's an old horse. He's
got a great pension. He's got retirement. Now he's got the county commission retirement. That guy does not know what it feels like to be a working class citizen in Indian River County. He has no clue. He's ready for retirement. He can go kick off his shoes and still have a nice monthly paycheck coming in. And
you know what? And you know what? Good for him.
The working class.
He needs to be told that we're not doing this anymore. So he needs to move on. Is what it comes down to.
Yeah,
just like same thing. They need to move on. We're moving on to another era. It's the end of one era and the beginning of another.
And the working class does not want to come to the county for survival and sustenance, like he said. Mm-hmm. It's not a hard economic time if you allow for economic activity.
Exactly.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong. I think everybody who has a great retirement deserved it. But when you're representing the working class, you no longer can really relate to what we're feeling right here, now.
Guess what? Tomorrow's not a guarantee. So whatever kind of retirement he has, whatever little honeypot he's building up, it ain't guaranteed to come to fruition for any of us. So good for him, but that's not a guarantee either. So he has to look out.
The stock market crashes.
We can be positive all we want, and we know exactly the talking point. But getting those people out to vote for that common sense, because look, I mean, they elected a former sheriff. How out of touch was he with the people at our level?
Well, Laura moved into my district just to run.
Exactly.
I've been living in my district and
again
with my people.
And again, he's double dipping. He's got his retirement from the sheriff's department. He's got his retirement from the state police because he was a state trooper before. And now he's going to go to the county commission. Now he's going to get a county retirement. So that's all these guys are in it for, is for their little nest egg. So they can, like you said, go back, kick their shoes off and be like, ain't my problem no more. And then they just roll on with the next program. And then we're the ones that have to deal with the fallout. That's what happened at the school board meetings. And that's just what's going to happen with the county. And it's going to happen with the city. It all starts with us.
That's like when I talked to Ehrman, I said, Ehrman, I know you guys don't necessarily run the budget for the school, but you guys show up. Like Joe Ehrman, they show up when the kids are doing graduations and stuff. I said, but when you're sitting students who pay an ad valorem to the school are having issues, you guys should be there too.
And
Because,
Joe's son
and they're never
works
there.
and Joe's son works for the sheriff's department. So there again, it gets this old good old boy program, just like everything else. It's been like that for years, guys. It really has, and we've just been infiltrated. And now we have to reverse that. We have to reverse it because it's been like that forever.
I think one of the places that it's getting reversed is the school system.
Yes.
I think we have seen it, and it's it's been an effort of advocacy from this community that has done it. And the talent was always there. The teachers, they just needed the place and an environment that the advocates fought for and won.
Exactly.
We won the discipline. Jennifer and her team were on those committees year after year, and they're going to be there again this summer sometime soon, right? And doing and refining how the discipline code should work in the school system. They're on curriculum, Chris Allen going and getting national to have 50 national newspapers call her because she defeated a whole state on wokeism in curriculum.
It's amazing work. Yeah.
It really is.
These people it's people like this that have won the battle. Now what do we have? The books were done 2 years ago in 2023. It's 2025. Tampa Hillsborough is still dealing with trying to get genderqueer out of the library, and they're like over there. Well, they got certified by a curriculum. That's like you guys are an up and coming school system, but they're below the state averages because why? They're arguing about books still. They're allowing this. They're allowing the moral standards of their system to fall. We have raised those standards up. We have implemented policy that directs this school system to do that, and it's number 5th in the state. The kids are learning, they're thriving, and it unlocks the talent in these people that were always there, and it's awesome. And Dr. Morafor, he's always been an educator. I've seen that guy almost break tears when he starts talking about education, and he gets to do what he wants to do now. That's the beauty of it.
Now, the school district, where's it going with the deseg order? Because that's still a
well, we still have our problems.
That ain't going away.
There was a good moment there for a second.
I was trying to be happy and positive and upbeat.
Well, you guys have been champions. I'm telling you, you guys have been champions, and Jennifer Pippin is just relentless. She's just phenomenal when she gets up there because she always remembers to let more know how happy we are with the changes and the things that they're doing right. But then when she does talk about things that are not wrong, she's not like badgering him. She's saying this law, she's bringing up statutes, she's bringing up laws, she's bringing up policy, and it's not a personal thing. And I think she just handles that very gracefully. And thank you. Thank you so much.
I appreciate that. Yeah, well, as much as we give them a hard time and tell them our wants and asks and what we need to do, we need to be thankful when it does happen. So, you'll hear me at the end of this month say, listen, like we're another A-rated district. Like, thanks to everybody who made this happen and Moms for Liberty, sitting on these committees and, like Thomas said, fixing the discipline and sitting on the Code of Conduct Committee for multiple years and getting, everything out that was, hurting our children. Because now we're seeing after all of these years the positive improvements, and that was from organizations like us and the teachers and everybody who's been working so hard and having good curriculum and just keeping an eye on everything. And I think that's what we need kind of for the county commissioners too, and CSAC, the Children's Students Advisory Council. When you talk about that, not a lot of people know about it. Not a lot of people are sitting through those meetings or doing public records requests on the information. And when you have law enforcement who say they are paycheck to paycheck and getting food stamps, and then you have NGOs that are getting $3.4 million from our county commissioners, we have a big problem. So some of us may have to venture over into that and start taking a better look at that and fix that like we did the school district. But and
you have organizations out there, the NGOs, so you have them going through CSAC and getting $100,000, $150,000. Then you have something like GYAC, which is used as CSAC, but they also get another $117,000 straight from the county direct.
Mm.
And you're like, wait a minute.
Why?
You get a here and then you get a here too? And then where else do you know, and then you got an organization like Thrive that gets a couple $100,000 close to it or something from CSAC, and then they go over to the Indian River Hospital District and get $889,000. So their take, I think, is like last year was $1.1 million in government funding.
Right, but then they're getting it from Johns Island Foundation, Quail Valley Foundation.
I don't mind the private. Yeah.
I mean, if you look at all of these things where they're getting it, and again, private donations, fine. If somebody's giving, but when you're getting all of these government funds where taxpayers are funding it, I personally have a problem with that.
Yeah. Right. And that's the issue they're going to run into as well, with this new, no property tax, because that's coming out of our ad valorem, and they're going to have to really look at these NGOs and cut back. Not all of them are really producing what they say they're producing, and some of them are just double doing what another NGO is already doing. And my belief system is, if your NGO is so darn good, it will be able to raise funds from very rich people and from this constituents itself when you have your events, because we have a very prosperous county. We have retirees that have done a great job with their careers, and they're sitting comfortably, and they're always donating, and they donate to people that come and do events, and they love what they hear, and they're very, very generous. So if we have to subsidize a NGO every year, it's telling me that either you're taking advantage of us, right? You're hiding money, you're using the money to pay salaries rather than really do for our kids, or you just suck at your job, but you're really good at asking for grants.
Yeah.
I think the handouts are in excess, and like you said, when property taxes go away, what's going to happen?
The responsible thing is to cut back on those NGOs right away.
Right. Well, it's got 4% of the county budget between community services and nonprofits. There's in the general fund, so I think it came out to like $5.9 million that they give annually, and 3.4 of it's community services. Community services at 3.4, they take 8% just for the administration of it through the hiring of Cindy Emerson, Megan Kendrick, and their team. So that's like $275,000 right there out the door.
Yeah, I'd rather.
And they wanted to do that because they ultimately want that taxing district. So Joe Flesher can help people with survival and sustenance.
Yeah, we're pushing up against the clock. We're pushing up against the clock, but I wanted to give you guys a chance to offer your opinion if you had one, or your thoughts on two different subjects. One, I think we're all pretty much conservatives here, and we were pretty excited for this new administration. With the latest bombshell in the Epstein case, with there not being a client list after being told for 10 years this guy was trafficking children to people, but these people don't exist. What are your thoughts on that and Pam Bondi's job that she's been doing at DOJ?
Thomas,
well, you see, the latest thing right now is Dan Bongino's leaving over this.
Yeah,
and I heard Cash considering it also.
I hope he doesn't.
I got two words. I got three words for you. Theater for the masses. It's all a distraction. Don't get caught up in all that stuff, you guys. It's all theater. That's all it is. It's going to play out the way it's supposed to. Like we said on our last podcast at TGI Now, what goes on in the dark will be brought to the light, and that's what it comes down to. If any of these people are corrupt, if Pam Bondi's got something going on and she's hiding something, she's going to get exposed. If Dan Bongino, which I think Dan Bongino knows way more than people realize. Remember, he was Secret Service for Obama and for Hillary. So if they were doing shady shit, they were doing shady stuff with kids or whatever, there. He saw what happened. So if he stood down and didn't intervene with what those people were doing back then that's going to come out too on him too. So these guys got a lot of pressure on themselves as well. They didn't get to where they're at just because they wrote a good book like Kash Patel did. Why was he able to write the book Government Gangsters? They would have took him down if he wrote something like that.
I like both the guys. I like both the guys, but looking back now, I feel like Kash was campaigning for the position. I do believe Dan knows more, and I think him being there gave himself confirmation. I do believe that little interview they did, I think that was loaded, because I think they want to turn the page. They want us to go look somewhere else right now. And but I think I don't know Dan personally, but I can feel like he's looking at me in the eye, telling me one thing, but he's also telling me, I'm not telling you the truth. Like, believe me.
When he resigned from his podcast, you can tell like he didn't want to do it. There was a reason.
He cried.
He didn't want to do it. You can tell that he cried because he's going to lose a shitload of money. But he cried because I think he was pushed into that direction to take it for a reason, whether to see what was really going on. Exactly. There was something else there.
He feels disappointed.
Even if they didn't have a client list, I have a hard time believing that there was no footage of clients doing their dirty deeds, because
they never said that.
His house was wired, so you don't need to have a written client list. All you got to do is take the people off the film doing it, and there's your client list.
Well, they never said that. I mean, they said there was a lot of all the pictures and the video. They're like, we can't release this because kids are involved.
Nobody wants to see that.
So they have all of. They never said that. They say, that actually exists.
One theory is that somebody else also has the
what manner? Who was the adult in the room?
Jen, what do you think? What do you think when it comes to the children and there being no perpetrators in this case except for Jeffrey Epstein and Maxwell?
Right. Well, you look at all these high profile cases. I mean, look at Diddy. Diddy got off on the biggest charges. So that's going to make people want to not come forward. That's going to make people not want to tell their story. When you look at this, I mean, if people come forward, if this did go to trial, for instance, like, why is Maxwell in prison if there isn't a list? Like, so there's so many, for me, like, I have so many questions that aren't answered. I kind of feel like we're back in COVID. Like, we know something's wrong. We know it's not right. We knew the numbers weren't right. We knew everything wasn't right, but we got to figure out how to get there. I mean, I think I probably get the most information from John Karapi here. It's not really, this is not really my wheelhouse, but I do have a lot of questions, and I see a lot of things that, are popping up and things. So I think, and I hope that there is transparency with this, because people need to be held accountable, because if there is children involved, or, these children are missing or whatever's going on, I think the parents have the right to know. So like I said, this is not my wheelhouse. I'm not very well versed in this, but I have a lot of questions, and there needs to be justice for children in these families. And if these people are involved in doing these things to children, they need to be held accountable so it doesn't continue to happen.
I think that's the sentiment, really.
Yeah. I think it's another Watergate scandal, and we're never going to know. They're going to push it under the carpet. Dan Bongino is going to leave. Nobody's going to know.
Watergate was a setup, and we will find out. It will happen. But the thing is that this has to make other people, not the people not the people in this room here, but the people that are watching CNN and Fox. This makes them question, like, wait a minute. If this guy didn't do anything, or he didn't have a list, then why was he in jail? And then why did he kill himself if he was innocent? That doesn't make any sense. You got to make the masses, like I said, the theater for the masses. You have to make the masses start to question their own reality and go, well, this doesn't make any sense. So what are they covering up? And then Trump goes.
Here's a good one for you. Mm-hmm. You go back to what Mike Benz was talking about. Bill Barr just sort of let it all go because he died under Bill Barr's watch. Mm-hmm. But you got to remember, Epstein was hired in the CIA by who?
Bill Barr's father,
Donald Barr. That's right. And so that you're like, okay. And he was part of Iran-Contra. He was making the connections with Khashoggi, his uncle, who was murdered by the Saudis not too long ago, because the Khashoggi family was running weapons.
There you
You
go.
almost can't see where the CIA stopped and Mossad starts when it
Exactly.
comes to
Yeah,
weapons.
this is all
Yeah.
just. This has got
All
so
goes
many
together.
tentacles,
All goes together.
and
We're
it's
never
like
gonna know.
So,
Yeah.
okay,
Bongino's calling for it to be released. Is the way the news is playing right now, and so it's like we're watching a soap opera on the daily, and who cares?
It's
Yeah.
all theater, Thomas. It's all theater
So-
for people to question their reality, is what it is.
I'm
on a
more
more
interested in
somber
our
note,
home here in Indian River.
What's that, Mike?
on a more somber note, we're approaching storm season. Our afternoon storms are getting hellacious here, and I don't mean to ruin the mood for anybody, but
Can we go back to schools?
Are they cloud seeding?
Yeah, right.
I don't know, but that's the word of what they do out in the Midwest, like Texas. And I actually saw a guy does it on Tim Pool's podcast and explaining everything they do. But
Mhm.
the horrible
The
tragedy
Rain
in
Man.
Texas, in Texas, I mean, what was it? Almost
by
50
design.
kids,
It's
or
all
was
by
it 30 kids washed away from a Mystic Girls
Yeah.
Christian summer camp? I mean, are we confident in our emergency response system, especially in times where, they're not funding sheriff's departments and they're giving NGOs all these money? I don't know the whole situation in Texas. I do know that the storm dropped an unreasonable amount of water in 4 hours,
Ton of
what this
water.
area would get normally in 2 months.
Yeah.
In 4 hours, more water dropped on the Guadalupe River than goes over Niagara Falls in 2 days, they said. That's a lot. Like that's
design.
that's a lot, over 1 billion gallons of water. And I mean, we think Texas is huge, but this river feeds other rivers, and that's what happened. And it was just horrible. Like, and I can't, I got pretty pissed off a week or two ago when my son was returning from a summer camp in North Carolina, and they took Amtrak, and Amtrak broke down over the state line. And after being broke down in 95-degree weather, they were told a train was going to come and tow them to the next station. And 4 hours later, that train never came. So here we are looking at our kids' locations, and thank God they had devices. They only have the devices during transportation. And I thought of that. So in this day and age, I hate the fact that our kids are always looking at these things, but at the same time, maybe I don't know. I couldn't imagine a natural disaster going on in North Carolina where my son was and not being able to get in touch with him because counselors confiscate the phones during camp time.
That's true, because you could put a tracker on your phone, and at least if it's somewhere you can drive or get to
Right.
or figure out how to get
And my
there,
kids
you've
know.
got the ping.
Right. And my kids know when you leave the house, that phone doesn't leave your pocket. Because for that reason, you don't set it down anywhere. Don't go run and play at the park at your friends. That phone goes with you just in case, So I'm like, I read the stories about the victims being found, the girls holding hands, and it's like, it breaks my heart. And for these parents, as a father of 3, and then to think, I was pretty pissed off at what happened with Amtrak, and I still am, but it was nothing compared to what some of these parents are going through who sent their kids away and didn't come
Yeah,
back.
they're
So
never coming home.
I wanted to take a moment to mention that, not to ruin everybody's tone, but to keep those families in our thoughts and prayers. And if you can help out, I'm sure there's ways to help out. But
That storm is not unprecedented in Texas. In '87, the same thing happened. They lost about 20, 30 kids back then. They had rescue operations of over 30, and so
yeah, but you
not
say that,
unprecedented, but
though,
this one was bigger. Well,
Thomas, for us though, 87 wasn't that long ago. For some people, that's a whole lifetime away.
I was
Yeah,
a
but you know
sophomore in
what?
college.
You're right, Thomas.
I was
It is
too.
a regular that is a regular area to have a lot of
The
rainfall.
stock market crashed.
But I was watching that interview with the Rainmaker, the CEO. His name is Augustus Rico, and he was saying that it didn't have anything to do with his his action, but you have to take into account, did they consider where those clouds were, when the location of those clouds, because when it rained into that river that overflooded. So it may not have dropped enough rain, but the fact that it was raining into an overflowing river already created that,
Pounded it, yeah.
compounded it. So not only is your responsibility to pick the clouds that don't have a lot of rain in them, but look at where they're located and how that could compound a situation and turn it into a dangerous situation. You know what I'm saying? I was listening to his interview and I said, yeah, but he didn't say where the location of that cloud was. Was it over the lake that was already full?
He didn't talk about this with Sean Ryan, though, did he? No.
No, I was watching it on, is it Fox News?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I was watching it
part of
on
that.
Fox News.
Stop
It's
watching
horrible.
news.
Why are they? I mean, I get it. They're trying to do something for crops and stuff like that. But the Romans, 2,000 years ago, built aqueducts that transported
Yeah.
water hundreds of miles.
Pretty
Why
amazing.
are we seeing the freaking clouds?
It's
Like
all-
it just,
Because he wants to make the desert green.
yeah. Well, run a hose or something like that. But okay, we're going on an hour and 10 minutes. More importantly, if you're local, very
That's
important.
awesome.
You know, very important.
Regardless,
If you're
son.
local to Indian River County, or if you're not, if you're watching on X on any of our channels, and we will share this on July 22nd at 9 a.m., the City of Vero Beach City Council will be having a meeting. But between now and then, if you're not even near here, drop your emails. You can email every city council member, including Linda Moore, ask for her resignation. You can email the attorney general. Who else should we email, Jen?
Governor DeSantis, because he can remove her. So if you look at that event, it's public on social media. It says demand the resignation of Linda Moore, Vero Beach City Council. All of the email addresses are there, so you can literally just copy and paste it. Super easy. All the information of where the city council meeting is going to be held is there. And we need to make our voices heard. They've received hundreds of emails. Governor DeSantis's office has received hundreds of emails of people not in support of this. And again, Governor DeSantis can remove her, she can resign, or we can recall. So hopefully, the governor will do this for us. If he doesn't feel it's egregious enough, she could resign or we could recall. And like I said, we'll have more information, as soon as the AG's done, looking at their investigation. But the biggest thing right now is just saying, listen, this doesn't, stand for our morals and values here. The children deserve better. We don't want these kind of, businesses and events in our county, and you have to speak up, because if everybody waits for somebody else to do it, or they don't show up to the meeting, or they don't email, nothing's going to get done. We have to make our voices heard.
I agree. So if you can find that event on Facebook, I'll put the link. I put the link up there on the bottom. It's not clickable where to go. Sorry. There it is. Just search on Facebook for Jennifer Pippin or the event, demand accountability, and hopefully we get some change out of the Vero Beach City Council. It is a shame, and that's like I said before, this could be anybody's city council. You have to pay attention to what is going on. You can't just be complacent, because these kids are going to be affected one way or another. You might be nothing now, but you're just molding the future little by little. So anything else you'd like to shout out, Jen? Any family nights or barbecues or anything like that?
Yeah, then Thomas put his hand up. He's going to say the same thing. Go ahead, Thomas.
No, you can do it. You're the best.
Okay, so the Republican Executive Committee, in partnership with Moms for Liberty and a couple other sponsors, are doing a family fun night at Heritage Center on Thursday. And they would like you to RSVP. They're going to have a bounce house, a band, barbecue, lots of fun stuff going on. And, you can come to the door. They are asking you to RSVP if possible to the REC, to the Republican Executive Committee. And Thomas, what was the charge? Was it $20, $25? And then
$25 for adults, 10
Right.
for kids under 2, I believe, is free. ircgop.com. You can just register there, ircgop.com. It's going to be a lot of fun. We have about 70 reservations so far. So a lot of people in the community coming out, and a lot of promises that they'll be at the door. And so I think you should come. I will probably go because it's just a lot of fun.
It's worth it to
Barbecue.
hear a live band, have barbecue.
That
You know,
includes
just
all the
kinda-
fixins, by the way, the barbecue, everything,
Mhm,
and and all the treats.
mhm.
Awesome. You might see me and the kids there. I don't think you'll see Elisa. She's working that night. But
It's the 17th, July 17th.
if I can make the trek all the way from Fellsmere, because I'm way out here.
Come on down for some survival and sustenance.
Like Joann said, you're out there in the outback, Mike.
Yeah. I love
Barbecue
that.
survival.
I'd like it. Hopefully it stays that way. Which, by the way, if you're watching at home anywhere in our county and you attend any of these meetings or you're concerned about any of these issues at your city or county or school district level, we want to get your input. Leave a comment. You can shoot us an email at indianriverconnections@gmail.com. If you want to come on, you're more than welcome to come on. If you have any subjects, you're more than welcome to throw them at us. And if we can work it in, we'll work it in. Last night, we had talked to a bunch of great people with concerns. You call them conspiracies if you want, but a lot of these are concerns and exposing cover-ups. So a lot of people out there, they want to talk. And if you we cover whatever you guys can bring to us. So whatever's happening in your local city or town, whether it's Fellsmere or Sebastian or Hoboken, we want to hear it, and we'll give you a platform to put it out there. So I want to thank everybody again for coming on. Thank you again, Jen and Thomas and Joann, for hosting another great show. You guys got anything else?
That's it. Thank you so much for having us on.
Thank you, Mike. Guys.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
All right. We'll see you guys next week.
again.
Yep. You too.
Mr. Crappie, Miss
Bye,
Smith.
guys.
sir.
Thank y'all.
Bye,
All
guys.
right. Have a great night. Thank you.
Indian River Connections brings you the first source you can watch for truth on board decisions in Indian River County. The Board Report, where taxpayers and policymakers intersect. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform to get notified when we go live on Fridays at 7 p.m. Visit IndianRiverConnections.com for more. Sponsored by Gus Curran's House of Champions.